But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak. And we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The lead story here, it says, Tinubu settles for Akpabio, Barrow as Senate President and Deputy. The writer has it that to convey decision to NWC, other contenders. So the President-elect will be conveying his decision to the NWC and other contenders. Meets APC governors, says, let's work together on NAS leadership. North can't be second fiddle. And that's according to former governor. Consultations ongoing for speaker, deputy positions. And that's all of that on page 4. Above the lead story, presidency to youth. You can relocate abroad for better opportunities. And that's on page 37. You find out why. FG suspends fuel subsidy removal on page 23. FG says no vaccination as poultry farmers lose 3.4 million birds to flu. And that's also on page 37. Below the lead story, tanker explosion kills 13, injured many in Jos. My administration recruited 60,000 soldiers, Buhari says, and on page 7. Girl, 8 test HIV positive for after mother's boyfriend raped her. You also have below the pictorial, Sudan crisis, 1,500 Nigerian evacuees to arrive Abuja today, according to the federal government. Returnees abandoned in desert over pay hitches. Hundreds of Umrah pilgrims stranded in Saudi Arabia. You'd find all the details on page 5 and 26. These are the main stories on Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Let's move on to the Punch newspaper. We'll start with the lead story on the National Assembly leadership. Tinubu governors dump consensus for zoning. The writers attached to this story says governors advised Tinubu against endorsing candidates, seek due process. The other writer says work with party leadership for principal officers election, Tinubu tells governors. The whole of that story you can find on page 2 this morning in the Punch newspaper. Let's take a look at the top. At the top we have federal government plans supplementary budget as next suspends subsidy removal. That story is on page 29. And then let's take a look at this one that says rescued Nigerian students arrive Egypt, await airlift. Page 7 has that story. And then PDP, LP lost poll to overconfidence. That's coming from the #1 citizen of the country, Muhammad Buhari. Page 40 accommodates that story. The bottom strip. Okay, let's take the story before the bottom strip, just behind the headline here, the lead story. It says over 60,000 soldiers recruited under my watch, says Buhari. Page 27 has their story. And then the bottom stream, we have $2.4 billion diversion claim baseless. That's coming from Malami. And the Nigerians rejoice as police go after rogue cops. That's on page 3. And then on floods, 16 states eye federal government relief fund. Page 34 has that story. And pretty much that's what we have in the front of the Punch newspaper for this morning. All right. Taking a look at the Guardian newspaper this morning, you'd find quite a lot of stories. The big story on page 4 and 5, it says, Nigeria's drug crisis hits 500 billion naira worth of seizures yearly. You also have other stories below the below the masthead. It says after $800 million palliative, FG suspends subsidy, cites wrong timing. You also have APC crisis. Lukman drags Adamu to court over alleged breach of party constitution. Malami knocks reps, says claims of illegal
$2.4 billion oil sale falls. Now, you also see a breakdown of the numbers for the Nigeria's drug crisis. Below that, we'll take further look at that shortly. Sudan crisis, confusion, logistics hurdle, trail evacuation. So these are the stories on the front page of The Guardian this morning.
All right, so let's move on to the Nation newspaper. The lead story says why Tinubu floored Atiku Obi by President Buhari. Get more details starting on the front page. It says President-elect urges governors to back party on National Assembly top positions. All right, you continue reading that in the Nation's newspaper this morning. Let's take a look at the top. We have 48 million barrels of crude oil not missing, Malami tells Rep. And we have Southwest State to launch regional power and rail projects. All right, page 27 in the Nation's newspaper has more details of that headline. And then Buhari says we have done our best to improve security. And then UK Prime Minister Sunak pledges support for Tinubu administration. That story you can read on page 3 and page 5 respectively. And let's take a look at this one that says government justifies Nnamdi Kanu's repatriation from Kenya. And lovers set self ablaze. Okay, that's another story. All right. This story is very interesting there. You can get more details in the Nation's newspaper this morning. And then the last one says 10 bond in Plateau tanker accident. All right, page, get more details in the Nation's newspaper. And then judgment reserved in OAU murder case. That's the headlines we can see in front of the Nation's newspaper this morning.
All right, now let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper this morning. On the Vanguard, the lead story, it says, restore local refining, says NLC, as FG holds subsidy removal. You have timing should not be now, says Finance Minister. It is commendable, TUC. Leave petrol subsidy removal for incoming government, CPPE. You also have above the masthead, oil prices drop below $80 per barrel as OPEC others end meeting. 10th NAS leadership work with Adamu's NWC. Tinubu tells APC governors. Buhari's government shouldn't be blamed for not bringing back all Chibok girls. That's the presidency. Sudan, Nigerian students trapped in desert. You also have other stories below the lead story. FG files 9 fresh grounds opposing Nnamdi Kanu's release. Allegations of missing 48 million barrels of crude baseless, unfounded, says Malami. Utaka wants Pesero's job. So these are the stories on the front cover of the Vanguard newspaper.
All right, let's move on to this day newspaper. The biggest story here says overconfidence, bad tactical moves killed opposition at the polls. That's coming from Muhammadu Buhari. It says ABC blended confidence with caution, worked hard to win. The other writer says hints at retirement plans to leave in Kaduna after 6 months in Daura. And then discloses nation's military ranking has risen from 7th to 4th in Africa. There's a pictorial there that says old soldiers are marching on. Pictorial of the president there in the front page. So just below the lead story, we have on Sudan, first batch of Nigerian evacuees arrived country today. Page 12 has that story. And then above the lead story says Tinubu to APC governors work with parties to elect 10th National Assembly principal officers. That story started on the front page, but you continue reading on page 7. And then we have at Edu Education Week, Obaseki launches agenda to improve learning outcomes. You can read further on page 33 of this day newspaper. Then at the top we have NEC pushes federal government to suspend planned fuel subsidy removal, and they said it proposes supplementary budget amendment to PIA And we have another rider that says petrol subsidy removal without operation of local refineries will hurt businesses, shut down SMEs. That's coming from Nasima. You can get more details. That story started on front page, and then page 5 has more details. And then, okay, then that's the much we can take from the front page of the DC newspaper this morning.
All right, now let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune, where the lead story says NEC suspends fuel subsidy removal, like we've seen on other papers. You also have Afenifere falls FG's insistence on conducting national census. NAS presiding officers, let's build consensus, Tinubu tells APC governors. You also have flood hits Lagos metropolis after downpour. Allegations on $2.4 billion crude oil theft baseless, lack merit, says Malami. 10 killed in Plateau tanker explosion. Court grants FG leave to file 9 new grounds against Nnamdi Kanu's release. Dawn Commission to partner foreign investors to link 44 southwest cities by rail. Sudan, amid stranded drama, NEMA says first batch of evacuees to arrive Nigeria today. Governors to meet Buhari over RMAFC's new revenue formulation. These are the stories on the front cover of the Tribune. Maria, before you look at the sports extra for us, looking at the president in his military regalia, what comes to mind? I mean, I've seen this picture virtually on every paper, and I've seen the social media flooded, with that picture, and it just brings in memories, and I can only imagine what's on the mind of the president. Really, this is probably the last time that he'll be wearing a military uniform for such a national ceremony. Exactly,
and a lot of people were thinking, prior to that, seeing that picture, I think it was just to rewind to 8 years ago, where a lot of people thought that it was going to be maybe a reimagination of what happened in his last regime when he was head of state, and then we have this here. So a lot of people were like, okay, maybe if he had behaved or probably come in like what he was dressed in, maybe we'll be having a different result from what we've seen right now. But regardless of that, it kind of spurs something in me that, he was a very gallant soldier.
And certainly this picture will remain in his maybe catalog or archive for a very long time, because this is very historical.
Yes, but people like us who didn't knew when he was putting on uniform, we now know how he looks like when he was. Yes, exactly. So it's really historical, like you said it. Yes. So it's something that will remain in our mind for a very, very long time. Sure. We have to archive this somewhere.
Yes.
Exactly. But let's get into the sporting world now, where adrenaline popping, and then we have a lot of upsets. Let's take a look at Punch Sport Extra with some of the juicy stories in the sport world. Let's take a look at this one that says that the English Premier League destiny is in our hands. So saying that that's coming from Pep Guardiola. All right, and then Arteta not giving up on title. How true is that, or how possible is that? I'll just leave you to decide on that, but you can read that in this Punch Sport Extra this morning. And then above that, we have Spirited Sports fight back against the Devils. It was true in the beginning, and then whatever happens, and Tottenham has to equalize. I don't know what happens, but you can read that. We have some of the tables there. Arsenal still topping the English Premier League table. And then we have Oshuala Stars as Barcelona reach Women Champions League final. That story is in the Punch Sports Extra. And then Emery best coach of this era. That's coming from Sunday Lise. All right, get more details this morning. And then Moses returned to Spartak training. All right, we'd love to see him. Reasons why? Maybe you get more details when you read the Punch Sport Extra this morning. And then Liverpool out of top 4 race. That's coming from Klopp. And then Lampard hints at over chances. All right, and let's see, our own Efinowan Ekpo is an exclusive. They say playing for the Falcons at the highest level, like I did back then, was the greatest moment of my career. As a team, we gave our best each time we were on the pitch. All right, so reminiscing her best moment with the Super Falcons there. And then we have the result of the EPL for yesterday, where we had Tottenham and Southampton, Southampton and Bournemouth rather, and then Tottenham and Manchester United, as well as Everton and Newcastle. The results are there in La Liga, in Coppa Italia, and then fixtures for today. You get that in the front page. And then let's take the last story that says United handed Osimhen transfer boost. That story is on the page, on page 7. And I think I skipped one. United not desperate to sign Kane. All right, page 5. And then Umowosi hails Sheffield United after promotion. All right, those are the stories this morning making the rounds in the Punch Sports Extra for today, Friday, 28th of April, 2023.
All right, well, some of the very interesting stories, and I'm certain that Nigerians will be talking about, is the suspension of the fuel subsidy removal by the current administration. So basically, we are seeing something that looks like passing the buck, passing the ball, and because a lot of people say, look, this issue about subsidy has been going on for years, for decades. It's been from one administration to another, even right from the days of the military, and yet no one seemed to have succeeded. One will wonder that if the current administration promised the removal of subsidy, it's been 8 years since the administration have been in government. So if truly there was a will to remove the subsidy, why wait until at the twilight of the administration, then you come up with the idea that the subsidy will be removed, only for us to hear then that, look, it's not going to work. Maybe the next administration will do it.
You know, that's what happens. You know, it's not just on the national level. We have this happening, transcending to the state levels, and it keeps affecting every administration. Like you said, this is an age-long thing Nigeria has to do, and it has not been done even till this moment. When we got the grant from the World Bank, the $800 million grant, and we thought that this was going to be it. And then all of a sudden, you know, laws, and then quoting from so-and-so sections, and then committee coming back and saying that right now is not the best time. And then we have another administration coming in weeks to come, and you're saying that, okay, if we come with our policies, we come with this, it's going to really hit hard on the people. I think Nigerians are at the verge of accepting that this has to happen. You know, talking to me 4 years ago, I would say this will really affect us. But researching about it, hearing experts talk about this and how it has eaten deep into the fabric of the nation has really opened a lot of people's eyes who really want to learn about the fuel subsidy and its removal. Now Nigerians are bracing up for it, only for them to say, hey, it's not time yet. Let's just happen. Now the question is, what happens to the $800 million grant? Is it going to be kept somewhere? Is it going to still be distributed to the vulnerable in the society? And if the subsidy removal is not happening now, then when is it? Because we need a window. We need to prepare. Companies need to prepare. Individuals need to prepare. Business people need to prepare. And the era where you just bring decision and just say next month is going to happen, it has to stop. This is something that we have to plan. I know that planning is going on. The committee will come up with something that suits Nigeria according to them. But does it really suit the ordinary man on the street who this hits directly?
At the end of the day, the next administration will have to carry that burden and get to decide the way and manner it intends to go about this. But again, it also means that there will have to be a review of the Appropriation Act to accommodate this new decision. Because if you say it's not going to be suspended anymore, at least not for now, then it means that you have to make another appropriation to cover for the time that the subsidy will still be in place.
True.
And the appropriation that was initially made was to end in June.
True.
So, and that's like the first month of the next administration
yes.
into office, and they're having to deal with, having a review of the Appropriation Act, which will be done by the is it the 10th Assembly now or 11th Assembly?
10th Assembly.
The next set of parliamentarians that will be coming into office. So, and only God knows the kind of politics that they will be coming in with, and the kind of, ideas. The current administration may not necessarily share the same ideas with the incoming administration, even though it's the same political party. So those are some of the concerns, and who knows? I mean, how much longer that this is going to take? Like you have said, Nigerians have almost gotten to a point of a consensus right now. If you look at the resistance that the whole idea of removing fuel subsidy, had back then in 2012, when the protest, under the former President Goodluck Jonathan. If you look at the protest at that time, it's not the same as what you have now. You have a situation where there was silence from Nigerians when government decided we are removing this fuel subsidy. So you could say that that's sort of like an acceptance of the reality that, look, we have to face this whether we like it or not, and whatever difficulty will come with it, let's just get right onto it. So, but at the same time, the same government that decided to do this is reversing this. I don't know who is complaining really now at this point. Is it Nigerians that are complaining about the timing, or is it the government that is complaining about the timing? And in any case, it doesn't even show that there was a sincerity right from the onset to even do this, because you are waiting to to the month of April to remove this subsidy, something that you have, promised even before you came in as a government.
Exactly.
And the whole idea of increasing the salaries of civil servants, the federal government civil servants now by 40%. What then happens now? We heard that the increase will take effect from the end of this month. So what then happens? Is the increase still, because the whole idea of the increase was because of the removal of the first subsidy by way of cushioning the effect and all that. So what then happens? Are we reversing all of that as well? And the challenge is that in the midst of these kind of things, certain things get to slide. You never know about it. You don't get to know about it. And at the end of the day, Nigerians will be paying for something that they did not.
This is just a clear case of taking two steps forward and then taking 5 steps backward.
Whichever way, I think that we can all agree that the subsidy is not the way for us as an economy, and it needs to be removed.
So one thing that keeps bugging me when we have some sort of headlines like this or information like this being passed is the ordinary man on the street. We've seen protests, we've seen people saying that you cannot remove the subsidy because it would really tell on us. And then at some point we saw that nothing like that was really coming, maybe little or nothing like that was coming. And then all of a sudden we had this bomb. Somebody who is ignorant about what's happening to the fuel subsidy and knowing that this is a reality that we must push away will feel like it is good. But we get to bear the brunt, like we're shifting this to maybe when it's not convenient for us. Nobody anticipated coronavirus. Nobody anticipated some of the things that we passed through from 2020 up until now. So why not do this? But let's just hope that, they come up with something better for Nigerians.
All right. Well, I want us to take a look at another story. The Sudan crisis story. It's everywhere, almost on all the papers.
True.
And the same story all the papers are covering about the issue of the drama that is happening about Nigerians stranded in the middle of nowhere as a result of non-payment of the drivers that will be conveying. And I find that there seem to be a lot of I don't know, should I say contradiction or what in the information that we're hearing. Now, federal government is saying 1,500 Nigerian evacuees are expected to arrive today. We heard just yesterday, in the wee hours of yesterday, the Airpeace, the chairman of Airpeace, Onyema, talking about landing permits in Egypt yet to be received. You know, so I don't know how soon he can get, whether he has gotten that landing permit for us to actually guarantee that we'll see the Nigerian students arrive today. That's one area. And then secondly, one of the students that was interviewed yesterday, I watched on a national TV, saying that the number of those that are already on their way are not up to 600.
Exactly. Exactly.
They are not up to 600.
Okay.
You know, so, you know, when you hear such things, you say for 1,500, what should we really expect? You know, at a moment like this where there is crisis, when there is chaos, it's important to be very honest with, you know, with Nigerians, because parents are listening, parents are watching, you know, they want information. And so it's important that you are very honest and open with them as to, you know, the status of things.
True. I got the opportunity to speak with one of the students in Khartoum who is yet to be evacuated to the border. And what he says that the ceasefire, which ended on the 27th, that is midnight, and said that, you know, it's approaching and they're still in Khartoum. They have heard from the federal government that they were going to be evacuated today or yesterday, but they are really scared. And they said the numbers and what they're going through, they cannot even speak about it. At the time of speaking with us, I think it was on the Nigeria Daily podcast for Daily Trust, and then he just said that, you know, I can hear bombs and, you know, gunshot from afar. So we cannot imagine what these people are going through. What we can say is, you know, everything should just be done to make these children, or these people, I can't say children, I beg your pardon, just be home as soon as possible in safe space.
We need them safe. We need them to arrive as quick as possible.